makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just put another dime. You know what? Wait. Time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic. Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle, joined by Timmy, joined by Branndon. You guys know what's going on, clearly. It's pretty much football eve of the conference championship. Couldn't be more excited for Detroit going to San Fran, KC going to Baltimore. How do you guys feel today?
I'm ready to record. I've been ready all week.
Same.
You know, felt like back in the day when you have a game or when your team's playing. Like, that's how I feel before we record. I can't wait to hear y'all opinions. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about these games, as well as like what's happened this week. We've had some big NBA happenings this week, some news, some 70-point games, some 62-point games. So I definitely want to hear what y'all think about that. But I'm ready. I'm definitely ready. How do y'all feel?
I'm ready to go. I think we've got a good slate of games. I think they're both going to be competitive games. I agree. I enjoy, having conversations like this. So I'm ready to get after it, ready to go.
Timmy, how about you?
Same. I'm excited. Hoping for some new faces in the Super Bowl. That'd be great. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fun that in fun news, it's always fun that we do this because we would essentially do this by ourselves without it being recorded. True. But now other people can just sit in and enjoy like the fact that we're just here doing it too. So it's fun because this would be the same exact conversation we would have like we did for 35 minutes before this podcast, just having conversation about random sports things because why wouldn't we?
For the love of the game.
For the love of the game. And I know we're obviously going to be talking football for sure, but as Kyle alluded to, there have been some big basketball moves so far. Doc Rivers being signed, obviously Terry Rozier getting traded to the Heat. Where do you guys want to start here basketball-wise real quick before we get into this NFL?
Well, I'll play that to you guys. I'll play it to the dais. Where do you guys want to start? Because you two are Heat fans. You guys got Terry Rozier. You know what? Let's start there because Branndon and I were kind of on the same page. Keenan, I want to know what you think about this. Branndon hit me. He's like, I think we could trade Hero. And I'm like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I'm going through their roster. Like, you don't really need Hero with Rozier. And you guys don't have a true point guard anymore now that you gave Kyle Lowry away. Obviously, you lost Gabe Vincent in the offseason. So why not trade why not trade Hero for a point guard and maybe just another swing player, rotation player? Like, you could get real value for Hero. So that's where I'm at. Wondering what y'all think. We obviously got the trade deadline here in about 2 weeks. We've already had two prominent trades with the RJ Barrett trade. RJ Barrett for OG and Anunoby is really the nucleus of that. And then obviously this Kyle Lowry for Terry Rozier trade.
Pascal Siakam too. Which is the biggest trade never talked about in like the history of the NBA. You have an all-star caliber player and you got traded to a team that was in the finals of the in-season tournament. No one talks about it. Like if you didn't watch basketball for that week and you were like, Pascal Siakam's a Pacer, what? Like you wouldn't, like there's a reason.
You wouldn't have known anything about it.
You would have
really was
not
under
known.
talked about unless you were listed.
Because so Branndon and I were actually talking about this exact trade, and I completely agree with you guys. Steph is on a heater right now, but I completely agree with you guys that Tyler Hero does need to be traded. Because I don't like Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero are the same guys. And I was talking to Branndon, I compared it to this is just a much lesser version of Dame and CJ McCollum, which that didn't work because they can't play defense. And I literally don't mean that, Kyle. I mean that in the sense of two small scoring guards who are going to be playing 33 plus minutes a game.
Hero's not small though. Hero's 6'5".
Yeah, but his effort on defense is terrible.
So here's the thing. He's not like short, small, but he is a small guard. Like he can be bodied, he can be moved around.
Slight.
You're not like He's slight. You're not gonna even Trae Young, who's shorter than him. That's a mismatch and a half. You do not want
Oh, yeah.
Tyler Hero guarding Trae Young all game.
No.
At least in my opinion,
I
that
agree.
is
I agree.
that is easy.
I think
work.
it goes both ways.
So
I'll say this: like I think I believe that the Heat will keep Hero. I don't think they should. Obviously,
yeah,
like as we brought it up, like I think you can get a guard, and like you said, he's a bit redundant with Rozier. Hero can probably play off the ball better than Rozier, but Rozier's learned to play off the ball, whether it's Charlotte or whether it's with Boston. He is such
Yep.
a perfect Miami Heat player, like to a T.
Oh, I love him I love
Um,
the pick.
Oh, yeah. I think he's
I
ideal.
loved Rozier on the Celtics. He can rebound. He's an underrated. He's an underrated rebounder. He can create his own shots anywhere. He's only gotten better at that. He's only got more efficient. So yeah, no, I agree. You don't need Tyler Hero. At the same time, if you did have him, he'd kind of be a luxury. But we did just see last year they made it to the finals without Tyler Hero, with Duncan Robinson
Yeah,
playing that
without him,
spot.
yeah.
So I mean, maybe you guys know a little more than me. I haven't heard a thing about it. Like, oh, maybe the Miami Heat are shopping Tyler Hero or they're thinking about it. But to me, it's just logical. Like, why would you add the starting caliber two guard when you already have a starting caliber two guard on top of Jaime, who's basically a 2/3? Like, they seem overcrowded
Yeah.
that position. Hero has real value. Like, why not? That's kind of where I'm at. And it sounds like that's where you guys are at too. I don't know if I would compare them
Yeah.
to Dame and CJ. I think Spoelstra would make that work out. He has a way of getting
No.
his guys to play defense in the playoffs. But I think they'd be good either way. But
I just more so meant two small guards. I didn't mean like they actually were
True.
Dame and CJ.
True.
You could even
And,
compare it to a lesser version of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray if you want. Like something like two guards that are kind of because like Terry Rozier is not afraid to play defense. I just think Tyler Hero defense is not his forte. He's not.
It's not.
signing up.
You're
on the
right. It's
dotted
not. But I
line
wouldn't call him
to
Trae
sit-
Young or
to
Dame
sit
or
in that
CJ
chair.
when it comes to defense.
He doesn't
either.
want to play
I'd
defense
put him at
either.
least ahead of those guys. But to me, they're a really good team and already a dangerous team, even without Rozier. Now they got Rozier, they're even more dangerous, especially to a team like Milwaukee, who we'll talk about in a sec. But man, if you just like put Hero on the market, I feel like you put yourself
I would.
not only in just contender status, which I think you guys already are, but I think you guys are like right there. If you put Hero up for 2 or 3 guys, whatever the salary would be, I think y'all could be right there.
They definitely
Branndon,
need
I have
some size.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I'm just someone who's on the trade block, and I'm interested in what your thoughts were. What would you feel if they could get a Zach LaVine instead of having Tyler Hero? I know that would technically be redundant, but he's a better athlete. He'd be a better defender, and I think on Spoelstra he'd be a happier player. I don't know what you feel. I'm just curious.
Before we got on, I was actually going to ask you about that because I did, like a couple weeks ago, I saw his name floating around. I would be happy with that. I do agree he's better defensively. Tyler Hero's a liability defensively. He just doesn't want to play defense. And he's got his moments where he's streaky. Like I told you earlier, I think he has an issue with being off the ball.
I agree.
Zach LaVine can be off the ball. He's efficient off the ball, effective. So I would do that as long as they're not asking for too much else. Like I'd throw in a pick and maybe somebody else for salary, maybe Caleb Martin or
Josh
Duncan
Richardson
Robinson
wouldn't
or who
hurt
else.
me.
Yeah, Richardson. If we could get Alex Caruso back as well too, I would definitely do that.
That would. I know they don't want to really move off of Caruso because
if anybody's been a Miami Heat player or would be a Miami Heat player, it would be Alex Caruso, and he's going to be a hot name towards this deadline. Like I feel like everybody, whether it's the Celtics, whether it's the Lakers, whether it's even the Warriors, I feel like everybody's going to be gunning for Caruso. I do wonder. I wonder if DeRozan's going to be available. I feel like he would be a great addition to whether it's Miami. Like if let's just say you're Miami and you could straight up flip Hero for DeRozan. My God, like I would be scared to death as someone who supports the Celtics. Or if you're a Bucks fan, I think you should be scared to death of that. That would be
The
amazing.
only issue I have with that is the spacing.
True.
Yeah,
it's like
that,
and it's
that
already
would be tougher,
especially with Jimmy Butler. They're kind of redundant, even though he turns up his 3-point a little bit.
I did see, I don't know if it's true or not, but I did see that Miami made contact with Brooklyn a couple of days ago, but after the Rozier trade for Finney Smith and Royce O'Neal.
I don't hate
Which
that.
I don't either.
I don't hate
Finney
that.
Smith's a good defender. At the
Who would they?
And they can
who would
shoot.
they give up?
I think that would be a Duncan Robinson kind of scenario. Like you'd have to throw somebody in there because Caleb Martin doesn't really.
If you're
make
not
enough.
giving up Tyler Hero and you can do that, and Tyler Hero would be fine coming off the bench again, because I think Terry should start over him. I think Tyler Hero fits better on the bench because he has his own. That's me. He has his own unit, and when he has his, over the years, I feel like he's always been better off the bench because he has his own unit where he can be the number one guy. The offense flows through him. And so, obviously, playing late in game for sure. But I think that would be if you got a Rozier, Jimmy Butler, Finney Smith, probably Royce O'Neal off the bench. But you'd have Bam, and then depending on who you want to have, even Jacquez Jr. I wouldn't mind him starting.
And
I do have a question for you guys.
Jovic has been getting run too, so you'll have him in the postseason. It seems like as a rotation
I
player.
hope they're literally baby stepping him, and I just
as you should though. I mean, he's not even old enough to drink yet, right? He's just 20. He's got all that potential, but I mean, baby step. If there's one team that showed us, hey, like we can make a G League player out of nothing, we can make a guy who other man's trash is our treasure. It's Miami, so I mean, I wouldn't even be worried about that.
I'm not worried. I'm just excited to see
because he's been at least starting.
Because he's showing promise.
He's been at least starting. So I would say after the break, I'm sure, especially if someone gets traded, that he'd get more minutes. But I mean, to me,
I don't need to question Miami on what they do in their their farms. Like I'm not questioning how they develop players. Like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus got bags because of the fact Duncan Robinson gets real quality minutes, and like he would
Kendrick Nunn got a bag.
We haven't heard of Kendrick Nunn since he left the Heat.
So literally since he got injured on the Lakers the first year, and we haven't. He might be a Laker still. He might not be a Laker still. I really couldn't tell you where he is.
So Petty mentioned Duncan Robinson. I know y'all are Heat fans, but to me, I'd almost want to keep Duncan Robinson rather than Hero. Even though they both are good shooters, I think Duncan Robinson's like about as top notch as a quality shooter as you can get. Maybe like a Kyle Korver light. Whereas if you can get that, even though he is a high salary, maybe not even now in today's NBA with the cap, I don't know. But if you got rid of Hero and still kept that level of shooting and got whoever back, like I'm thinking of a 2-for-1 for Hero, or even if it was a 2-for-2, just a salary match with Hero. But Hero being the nucleus of that, I would think you'd be able to get two quality players, if not one solid player on Hero's level. So I really wonder what that is. I would think Riley and Spoelstra, but especially Riley, would be thinking that way. But maybe they just covet Hero, more than we covet him. The three of us, the way we're talking about him. But I don't know.
It's certainly possible.
I would think that he would be on the table. I mean, especially after the run last year without him. So I don't know. That's very interesting to me with these last 2 weeks. Exactly 2 weeks now that I'm thinking about it. It's Thursday. 2 weeks from now, we'll get the trade deadline.
I do agree with that. I have one more question on this, and we can move over to the coaching situation, the coaching change. If you're flip side, if you are a team who's contending, do you look to trade for Hero?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, it depends on the trade. Like the Lakers making a trade, if it was like Jared Vanderbilt and somebody else, I don't think you would be able to get Jared Vanderbilt and D'Lo for him. But like Jared Vanderbilt and maybe Rui in getting Tyler Hero, or if you are, I don't know, there's a couple other teams out there that could use scoring and you'd get him. I was just curious how you guys felt about the opposite side of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a team like Brooklyn, like Petty mentioned, like why wouldn't you want a young star? Because they don't have their pick this year. It's a weak draft. Why not go get another young quality piece? Like he's anywhere from for sure starter level to fringe all-star level. Like so Hero could be, and especially with that Heat come up, like that's definitely a piece I would covet. Like you're definitely not getting a Jordan Poole type with Hero. You're getting someone who's at least going to work hard. You're at least getting someone who's even flash some playmaking ability in Hero. So, I would definitely want him on my squad. I think the Celtics had a chance to draft him back in the day when he was in the draft, and I wanted them to draft him.
They did.
That's someone.
They absolutely did because Shannon absolutely wanted him.
That's right. Yeah, UK
for sure. Because obviously Shannon's I was gonna say big Kentucky guy, big Celtic guy. So he was like, I want Hero on this roster, but obviously they didn't end up
For
getting
sure.
him.
So I mean,
he was very excited.
that's the most
about that.
interesting situation to me. On top of maybe Chicago, because we know all the usual suspects are gonna be looking for trades. Sixers gonna be looking for trades. Boston's gonna be looking for trades. Miami's gonna be active. LA's obviously gonna be active. It seems like the Knicks are gonna be active. So all the usual suspects are gonna be active. Chicago looks like a seller, but they're much where they've been the last few years, which is like play in. Oh, they could work their way into the playoffs if they go on a good enough win streak.
They're right on that
Kobe
fringe
White plays well
again.
enough. So you never really know if they're actually going to sell Levine. I know they're playing better without Levine. So I would like to see him somewhere else. I'm not particularly a Levine fan. But I haven't heard Miami thrown around. I could almost see that working as much as I'm not a big Levine guy. I could see that working better than the Lakers for Levine. I really want to see.
I agree.
I really want to see DeRozan on a championship type roster, whether it's Miami, whether it's I don't know, maybe LA, but I think Miami would be a good spot for him, or maybe even I don't know, maybe Denver. I don't know, but Denver doesn't really have the trade pieces. They'd have to trade some of their nucleus. Denver doesn't have to make any moves really. So
I've got one trade real quick.
Sure.
And I would be talking with the Pistons and possibly trying to get Bogdanovich and getting Danilo Gallinari. I think you could do work. I think Gallo would be a nice veteran piece. I think Bogdanovich would be a nice piece as well. And then possibly something else in a Tyler Hero package. And I think Tyler Hero on Detroit would work because you'd have Cade and then you'd have another guy who can score. Obviously, they have Jaden Ivey, I know, and they have younger guards who can score. Killian Hayes is solid too. But I feel like that wouldn't be bad.
There was one,
or maybe Alec Burks with it too.
There was one thrown out today. I don't know
guys.
if y'all saw it, but it was Levine. Supposedly, this was actually talked about between the two franchises. It was Levine for Bogdanovich to the Bulls, and one of Asar Thompson, one of Cade Cunningham, and one of Jaden Ivey, or who's the big? Duren.
Duren.
One of those with Bogdanovich for Levine, which would be, to me, a lateral move for the Pistons. It would be great for the Bulls. But for the Pistons, it's weird. The Pistons have a ton of talent. I don't think they're nearly as bad as what their record shows. I don't understand the fit with Monty. But we'll talk coaches in a sec here.
Alrighty. Yes, absolutely. So
Tim, hold on, Tim.
We can move on to
Hero traded or Hero stay? You got to break the debate.
Stay.
All right. Tim says stay. Tim says stay. We'll see. We'll reconvene on February 9th or February 8th. Late February 8th, we'll convene on
it's so crazy how people's stock goes down.
It is weird.
Right after the bubble, Tyler Hero, you would not have moved off of him at all. Right after the 2022 championship, Jordan Poole was a commodity. You would have not moved off of Poole. You're like, oh, he's gonna...
To be fair, I never understood that one with Jordan Poole. I was like...
You know what? It's fair.
I'm like,
it's
what?
fair to even feel that way. But he still was. Like, that's
I kind of felt that way with
I
Hero.
agree with you.
I felt that way with Hero, but at least I could see. I was like, all right, he could shoot Miami. You got to factor.
He made big plays on that.
Miami
run.
reminds me so much of a mixture of, and I've said this a million times, but they remind me so much of the Spurs, but so much of the Patriots. They really remind me of the Patriots as far as like, oh, that's our type of guy. We're going to get him. Y'all might not see it, but we see it, and he's going to succeed with us. Or, oh, that's a talented player. You guys think he's, trouble, this or that, and we're just going to turn him into the best version of himself, like Hassan Whiteside back in the day and Deion Waiters. They just remind me so much of the Pats in their heyday in that regard.
Yeah. So quick question. Would you guys fire your coach if you were second in the East?
In that situation?
If you
Probably not.
In that situation, I mean, to me, that was brewing. I think that was one of the things in our preseason preview, Keenan, with me, you, and Camden. I think that was on my things to watch was Adrian Griffin. That was a very surprising hire at the time to me because Nick Nurse was available, Doc was available, a few other guys were available that weren't named Adrian Griffin. And I actually just found out this week, listening to podcasts and just listening around that like Giannis was all the way out on Nick Nurse, which is surprising because he was certainly the best coach on the market. And then like even Monty Williams, I'm not like a huge fan of him, but he would have worked in the Doc Rivers role that he's going to be doing now, as far as the vet dude, the former player that's in the star's ear. He would have worked much better than Adrian Griffin.
We saw what he did with the Suns.
Yeah.
That was a similar situation.
Yeah, and
obviously,
and to be fair to Adrian Griffin, he was hired before the Dame trade, so maybe they weren't even thinking like contending this year, or maybe like fringe contenders with their original roster. I don't know, but you know,
which is crazy. Any year you have Giannis, you're a contender.
Sure.
So I think
Sure.
I know what you're saying, like what like the office might have been thinking, but if that's the case, that
and not
is
even
nuts.
like non-contender, not a non-contender. That's a wrong.
No, I know
that's a wrong
what
word
you're
to
saying.
use.
I know
But
what
maybe
you're-
they didn't think like, I don't know. Maybe they're waiting on an injury type of thing. I don't know. But it seems like Adrian Griffin was more of a developmental coach. Maybe someone you'd want if this was like Giannis's second or third year, not 8, 9 years, whatever Giannis is into the league. So to me, honestly, I wasn't too surprised by it. Like, to get the notification on my phone, yeah, I was surprised. But like, it's something I was honestly like, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was fired after the year, just because it just didn't make sense with the timeline.
That would have made more sense to me, but it just like they were 30-13, they were looking good already. It just didn't make the timing of it just didn't fully make sense to me because they had won their last couple games. So it wasn't like they were coming off a terrible loss. Like that's why I felt like something happened and that must have happened internally where I was like, that's the last straw.
And I don't think necessarily something happened internally as much as like it's just been this way the whole season. Like I think it was the in-season tournament where Bobby Portis was calling out Adrian Griffin, and like there'd been reports of like Giannis not being in the huddle during timeouts and such like that during the in-season tournament and such like that. So, and just the guys not respecting Adrian Griffin. It was very much like the David Blatt situation years ago, which you'll hear this be compared to.
Yeah.
And that's all it was. Like, I feel bad for Adrian Griffin and the fact that like he's probably equipped to be an NBA coach. Obviously, he was hired to coach this team, but he wasn't equipped to coach a contender, a championship level team. So I made the comparison like Monty Williams would probably be better with this team than he would Detroit. Same thing. Adrian Griffin would be better with this team than he would Milwaukee. So it's just unfortunate. They should have just hired Doc in the offseason. It really seems like it was a Giannis hire to begin with, I would assume anyway. They got rid of Bud because of Giannis. They hired Adrian Griffin and got rid of Adrian Griffin because of Giannis. So Giannis is on his LeBron shit. It seems like, was it the right move though? Yes, it was. They're going to be better with Doc. I know Doc gets a lot of hate. To me, that's your typical like narrative that takes a strong turn. I actually have a football comparison for Doc, but I'm going to let y'all react, and I'll get to my Doc Rivers piece later. I'm going to let y'all react.
Branndon, you go.
It didn't surprise me. I got the notification and I was like, okay, I could see that coming. I mean, they kind of got into a little bit of a dogfight with the Pistons. They were playing down to other teams as well too. And then I also think as well too, I don't think he really did a good job of getting Dame and Giannis acclimated together. I don't think they did a good job of coexisting. You'd have a Giannis game and then you'd have a Dame game, and there wasn't really too much chemistry between them two. So I do think the timing was a little curious to me. I would have been okay if they would have waited until the end of the year, but I understand why they just went ahead and cut ties now. You get Doc in there, a guy that's going to know what to do with the roster with that much talent. He did that with the Clippers, with countless other teams. So I think it's a good move on their part. Just a little curious on the timing.
Yeah, the timing threw me off a little bit too, but you get Doc in there and you get a guy who his narrative has gone down because he's blown 3-2 leads, he's blown 3-1 leads, so people feel like he's not a great playoff coach. Even though he is a champion, he has coached in the finals more than once. So I think he is a professional. That's the one thing that they need there, and he's an adult, and he is also someone who is a hard-nosed guy. And defensively, a team with Giannis, Brook Lopez, I understand they obviously lost Drew Holiday, but you shouldn't Drew Holiday should make you go from like the number 1 or 2 defensive team maybe to the number 10. You shouldn't be this bad defensively,
No.
especially if you have like Giannis alone, like AD right now alone for the Lakers. I know they have some pieces, but AD alone makes them a top 15 defense, and Giannis has that same capability. He's just not utilizing it now, and I feel like Doc's going to instill that defensive nature in Milwaukee more, so I would think they're going to be on an uptick that way. And he's coached players of this stature before, as you were saying. It's Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. Those are guys of high stardom. You have Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen to start off, and then Rondo gets into that when he becomes a star too. Yeah. Obviously, you just coached Embiid and Harden, so he's coached a lot of stars before, and having two stars coexist, 3 stars even coexist. So I think it's a good hire. It should have been the original hire, but I mean, I think it's cool because you don't want to waste a season and you feel like coaching could be an edge or a problem. And if you feel like it is now, you might as well do it. But it was just weird timing to me. It just shocked me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. It's around the same time that David Black got fired in his second season.
Yes.
The difference.
Yeah.
We're top heavy, as you know what. I think that was like right before he got fired. It might have been, or it might have been a year after possibly. But I think it was when LeBron said that we're top heavy.
Right. The difference is with that, though, they promoted Ty Lue from within. So he had the same coaching staff, everything. Doc's going into Adrian Griffin's coaching staff. Doc's coming in off the street just mid-January, late January, actually. And just, here you go. Here's Dame. Here's Giannis. Instill whatever you instill.
They go from calling some games as a color commentator, go coach Giannis. Hey, at least he's been watching basketball. Yeah. Actually, not that you would ever expect him not to, but at least he's been watching basketball.
Actually, Doc had these spots he was doing like once a month with Bill Simmons on his podcast, and they were like really good. Like Doc, honestly, like I'm in the minority here. I'm a huge Doc Rivers fan, just as like the person. Like I love listening to Doc talk basketball and just talk like ball history and stuff like that. Like he's got great anecdotes.
He's knowledgeable.
Exactly.
Yep.
And, you know,
he knows what he's
because of
about.
like all the stars he's coached, you know what I mean? And
played with.
Absolutely.
Too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And played against. So I love listening to Doc. I love having Doc in the league. I actually really liked him having, being a commentator. I thought he was very skilled at that.
He was doing a really good job.
But it's really interesting. And I learned today he signed an extension through 27. So looks like he'll be there at least for a few years, but this to me is just like super interesting. I don't expect them to win the championship or anything, obviously, but it's like, all right, it's pretty much exactly the halfway point. Adrian Griffin coached 43 games. Doc's going to get 39 games with him, right? So like, let's see what he does. Let's see how that goes. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. I do agree with Keenan. I think they're going to get better defensively. I don't think they have the personnel really to get better defensively because I think they're like a 7-deep team. But as we're going to talk about in the NFL playoffs, you really only need it for a certain amount of games, right? I mean, you can get by. We've seen with Adrian Griffin, they can just flat out outscore teams with Dame and Giannis, and they're not even like, I agree with Branndon. They're scratching maybe 50-60% of the surface with those two. And those are two all-time players. Dame's clearly taken a step back, but has he really? Maybe he's just not being put in the best positions. So I don't know. We'll see more of the Dame Giannis pick and roll. Maybe we'll see more dribble drive from Giannis that creates more opportunities for Dame. But I like the hire. Like I said, I'm big on Doc as far as how he is as a coach, at least with stars. Doc Rivers to me, like, no, he's not a good X's and O's guy like Nick Nurse, right? But he's like a cornerman in boxing where you're in your star's ear, you're giving the motivation. Like, that's his job, and you'll hear like the '08 Celtics, like Rondo, Pierce, KG, all those guys, they praise Doc. I don't even think Chris Paul or Blake would have a bad thing to say about Doc. Like, Doc's coached in some weird ass situations. He had Simmons when he melted down. He had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin when they were beefing. But to make an NFL comparison, who Doc Rivers reminds me of to a T with his postseason record, with his regular season record, with how he approaches coaching, Tim, you'll appreciate this. He's the NFL equivalent to Mike Tomlin. Tomlin's very much like that, where he's not an X and O guy, but he is very much the locker room motivational guy. And it works to a point. And they each have one ring. Tomlin's 2 games below 500 in the playoffs. I think Doc's only 7 games above 500 in the playoffs. But
which is like the same equivalent.
Pretty
honestly.
much, right? And Doc's only had 2 losing seasons. His first 2 seasons with the Celtics, and then he had a losing season, which he got fired in his last season with the Magic, and it was like within 11 games. He started like 1-10. And Tomlin famously has never had a losing season. So they're very much the same to me. They're in the same air to me. And, I do think, Doc's not the most modern coach, but I do think he'll be good for Dame and Giannis. And how that will work beyond this year, I'm not sure, but I do think they'll improve in the short term. I do think they're at least a second-round team, and we'll see beyond that. But, to curl our first topic back in, curl Miami back in, I think Miami's already taken a lead ahead of them with this Rozier trade. And I don't know. I just think Miami's live. And if Milwaukee can get any sort of camaraderie going towards the playoffs, then yeah, absolutely they're dangerous. And especially if they can make a trade and just get one more body, one more guy who can spot up, maybe play a little defense, maybe a 3-and-D guy. Like if they got Finney-Smith, that would improve them. But I don't expect it.
Yeah.
I don't expect it. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm very interested just to see how this experiment from midseason goes. But I expect more next year and the year beyond. But hey, Dame's going to be a year older than he already doesn't play the greatest of defense. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just excited.
Branndon, do you have any more?
No, not really. Just
All right. Well, Kyle was talking about motivational coaches, and clearly we've got one this weekend playing in the NFL. That's Dan Campbell. That's the San Francisco 49ers. But we're not starting there. We're going to start Baltimore KC because it's the first game. And we're gonna start with Timothy Gray.
You're gonna call him Tim McGraw?
We're gonna start with him.
I was about to call him.
No, I was gonna call him Tim Gray. Then I was thinking Timothy Gray. Then Timothy Gray. I don't even really care.
Tim, we got to get good firing, bad hiring, or was it? What's your view on this Doc Rivers thing? Good hiring or bad hiring? What do you think?
Good firing, mediocre hiring.
All right.
Okay.
That's what I'll give it. Here's what I'll say. The Bucks aren't winning a championship.
All right. Tim laid it down.
Absolutely. Breaking it down with the Pirates in
The
space.
Bucks are not winning a chip. All right.
I need to know what you feel about this Baltimore KC game, and you can go in depth, man. We just were talking for a while. If you want to talk for 10 minutes, feel free. We'll sit and listen.
Definitely not going to talk for 10 minutes. I don't know if I could even write a script that would last 10 minutes. When I look at this game, I think this is going to be a good game. The Baltimore Ravens defense, I think, is the best defense that the Chiefs have played, in a while. Mm-hmm. And we haven't seen them play very well until last week, where they played pretty good. Kelsey got involved, a couple touchdowns, scored 27. I don't think they're scoring 27 this weekend. Is what I'm thinking here. Before the show, Brandon had brought up injury report. We got Pacheco missing, some linemen. Mm-hmm. That could really hurt them if they can't run. That's a big deal. Definitely taking the Ravens just because got to stick with my guns here. Ravens are the better team. Better defense. Offense looks better. Not going to lie, I think this could be not an ugly game, but I think the Ravens can run away with it. So I'll take it 27-17.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
How many Mahomes turnovers?
Mahomes will have 2 turnovers. They're going to get a fumble early, real early. First quarter, maybe a couple minutes into the game, Mahomes fumble.
So you don't,
and then they're going to get a pick.
You don't believe the Chiefs will have a underdog factor here? You don't think they you're basically saying the Ravens overall are just going to be too talented even for that factor to because Mahomes is an underdog, his record's insane. And I'll add my 2 cents eventually. I don't know what order we're going in here, but
You keep talking right now. You're already going on it.
I agree with Tim. Then I completely agree. Like I don't know if I have a 10-point victory, but I have a hard time believing. Like I'll go this far. I'll say I could see the Chiefs scoring more than 17. I could see the Chiefs even putting up 24, right? But the logic I've used with the Niners in weeks past, I just have a hard time believing the Chiefs are going to get a quality performance out of their offense, but also going to stop Lamar in the running attack, Lamar in the passing attack, Zay Flowers, Odell if they want to use him, the two tight ends. On top of the Ravens having a good line, the fact that the Ravens want to run, the fact that, I mean, this is why I love the Eagles so much in, last year and then leading up to like when they fell off. They can just get it to second and manageable so much. The Niners as well. I think that's such a factor when you can just sit at 2nd and 4 all the time, 2nd and 6, and then the playbook's just open. And the Chiefs defense is good. Don't get me wrong. They're tough. They're physical. But the Bills ran it all over them last week. I mean, we talked about what happened in the game and how Allen took those deep shots at the end. He got 2nd and 9. And, maybe if he doesn't get bumped by his lineman, he hits Shakir on that play. But they easily ran the ball. And the Ravens want to run the ball. And guess what? If you take away the run, okay, we can put Lamar in read option. We can put Lamar in play action. Like, they just have so many options. The only way I really see the Chiefs just coming away with this game is if Lamar has a terrible game. If Lamar is just fucking awful. Because, I mean, look, I know we see it time and time again where you have a star player like Andrews out and they come back and play and they're just not the same. They're truly injured, but they're, if it was a regular season game, they'd be out, but it's the playoffs, so they activate them. Even if that's the case, Likely's playing at a high level. Their stable of backs are playing at a high level. Their offensive line's playing at a high level. Like Tim said, this is the best defense the Chiefs are going to be facing for quite a while. And we saw how the Raiders put the shackles on them. I know it was about 4 weeks ago, but I think that's a lot to ask. Even if Mahomes has like a 4-touchdown game. And let me ask y'all, can you guys realistically see Mahomes putting up 4 touchdowns, no picks, something like that? Like, I just can't see it.
I don't see it.
I can't see it. And I'm, as someone who's going to eventually bet this game, as someone who, like, saw Mahomes as an underdog last week and he put up a really good performance. They even put that offense to a more traditional 3-step drop back, get the ball out type of offense. We saw Kelsey have a throwback performance, sure. But can I really see Mahomes is taking over? And then on top of that, them holding Lamar? No, I can't. Gun to my head, I cannot. And I don't know. I truly think the only path to victory for them is Lamar to have like a 3-turnover game. Yeah. Could happen. It could. I mean, he could absolutely get tight. I just don't see it. And they're so well-rounded everywhere else, so fundamentally sound everywhere else, and can just play from 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2. Excuse me. That's such an advantage for them. I just don't see it. I can't see it at all. I will have a score for you in a second. I want to hear what y'all have to say. But I'll say, fuck it. Let's say 32-25 Ravens. That's a cover, and that's a decisive win for the Ravens.
All right, Branndon, you go.
So I agree. I'm picking Baltimore to win this game. Like we were talking about before we started recording, Pacheco did not practice today. That's 2 straight days that he didn't practice. Whether he's actually hurt or if it's management, whatever. He's got an ankle toe issue, so even if he does play, that could hinder him. You might see some more Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
He did that on the pretty much the last run of the game. It was right before the Hardman, that 30-yard run you saw it on the sideline, but go on.
And then from what I saw today, too, Joe Tooney is more than likely not playing because he has, I don't know if it was meniscal or it was a knee issue. So their best offensive lineman more than likely is going to be out. So it's going to make it even harder to run the ball against a great Baltimore front. I think defensively Baltimore matches up well against Kansas City. Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen can guard Travis Kelce, and then you have Kyle Hamilton too if you want to put Kyle Hamilton on him. Marlon Humphrey is going to take Rashee Rice, and as we've seen, Kansas City really has no proven wide receiver too. And then I think Baltimore offensively, I agree, they're going to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball. Derek Nottie, Kansas City's DT2, is more than likely going to be out. He's trending that way. Hadn't practiced second day in a row. Probably their second best interior defensive lineman besides Chris Jones. I think Baltimore, I think it's going to be close the first quarter to maybe kind of like you saw the Texans game last week going into halftime. But I think eventually as the game kind of wears on, I think Baltimore's going to wear Kansas City out defensively. And I think Baltimore's going to win 31-21.
Two 10-point victories.
You guys have it higher scoring than I do. I'll get to who I have winning, which is not a shock because I've kind of alluded to it for the last few weeks. 31-21. Sorry. So, going through this game, I did it with the other game too, and that's going to be a little bit more interesting breaking that down. I went in and I was like, let me break down every position group and let me see what's better. Coach, I lean Andy Reid, but John Harbaugh is a very good coach. Quarterback, you can put equal. You can lean Patrick Mahomes because it's Patrick Mahomes, or also if you want to see who's playing better this season, it's Lamar Jackson. I put equal, but if you want to go Patrick Mahomes, I'm fine with that. Running back. The Chiefs have the better running back in Isaiah Pacheco, but if he doesn't play, then definitely not. But the Ravens have the better running attack. Obviously, with the fact that Lamar is Lamar, you could argue he's the best running back in the game, but also he's your quarterback. Receiving core, I lean the Ravens because of the fact that you have Zay Flowers, who's not as good as Rashee Rice, but Zay Flowers has been really good. Obviously, I trust Odell more than Scantling. I trust Bateman more than Justin Watson. The way Travis Kelce is playing, I think Travis Kelce is better than Isaiah Likely, but Isaiah Likely is playing very well. I would have the Baltimore Ravens have a better receiving core. Kyle, you were saying something?
I was just going to say, I don't think it'd be crazy to say Zay Flowers is better than Rashee Rice.
I don't think it would be crazy to say that.
I don't think it's crazy. I just wouldn't have him there yet. I like how Rashee Rice has been playing. But again, Zay Flowers has been playing really good football too, so no real debate here from me. Offensive line-wise, I've got the Ravens. They have a better offensive line right now. But that's really, you could equal out that. They both have very good offensive lines, so I could put equal there. Defensive line, I understand Chris Jones is really good, and the Chiefs have a good defensive line. I lean the Ravens. Justin Matabuki is an all-pro second team. Chris Jones was the first team there. I think that should have switched, but that's me. Or Aaron Donald should have not been there. That's me, though. So defensive line, I would lean there. Linebackers, you have Roquan Smith already. That they have a better linebacking core. Secondary, you have Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey. Kicker, you have the best kicker of all time on the Ravens team. So they're pretty much better in a lot of aspects here. The reason why you would pick the Chiefs would only be because Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar hasn't been in this spot. They have been in the spot 6 straight years. That would be really, and that's it. So I understand the Chiefs defense is very good. The Ravens is better. I have the Ravens here 24-20. I think it's going to really come down to, for both teams, can Steve Spagnuolo call blitzes and hem Lamar in the pocket? Because if Lamar escapes the pocket and you're sending blitzes, that's going to be daylight. And for the Ravens, you rush 4. Can you keep Mahomes contained? Because Mahomes outside of the pocket, that's when he's super deadly. If you keep him in the pocket, obviously he's still very good, but he's not as deadly there. And they've been doing that with every quarterback this season. I don't think that fully changes, but obviously Mahomes can have a good game. But 24-20 Ravens, they are going to the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a fun game.
I might actually lower my final score, but that's besides the point. I do think there is a world. Just a world. I'm not saying, obviously I made my pick, so we know where I lay here, but there is a world where they can make Lamar uncomfortable. Lamar looked
absolutely.
Certainly.
Lamar looked kind of tight even in the first half of the Texans game. I'm under the belief that he will be comfortable, and Baltimore is a legit home field advantage too. Let's not get it twisted. So Mahomes won his first game on the road last week. It would just be tough to go to to Buffalo and Baltimore and win both of those games. The NBA equivalent to that would be winning a Game 7 in Golden State and then winning a Game 7 in LA. That would just be tough. That's super tough to ask of him. And his receiving core is just not equipped. So earlier in the week, all week, I would say I was expecting kind of like you can, like a 24-20 game, which still might happen, but like just a true classic. And it still might be. That still might be the game of Sunday. It very well might be. Like we're gonna see the Chiefs' true championship medal. You know what I mean? Like they definitely ain't gonna roll over. And shit, if they get through the Ravens, like if they really get through the Ravens and just at least compete in the Super Bowl, they ain't gotta win it. But if they compete, you can start comparing them a little bit to the Pats. Like I've been weary to compare them to the Pats at all. I think people forget about the early run of the Pats. I mean, Keen, you mentioned last episode, like obviously the Patriots got the 18-1 record, most wins in a regular season for one season. They got the most wins over 2 seasons, 22 straight. So that's where the Chiefs don't compare to me. You mentioned just barely like Andy Reid, you'd have him a nudge ahead of Harbaugh, which I don't think that's controversial at all. Like I mean, you know, that's nothing crazy about that. But I do think Harbaugh is like he's better with less. You know what I mean? I don't know if Andy Reid's a better less with more kind of thing. I think Harbaugh is more Spoelstra than Andy Reid to make that comparison. So, like, the only outcome of this that I can really see, again, I'll repeat it, is just Lamar having a bad game. I just can't see it. Like, even if he had 2 touchdowns to 1 pick, right? Like, as long as he's running the ball effectively, I can't see the Chiefs really hanging with them. And the way to hang with them would be to shorten the game and them to run the ball on their end with Pacheco. And I don't know, what's the injury? What's Pacheco's exact injury?
It's an
ankle
injury.
Ankle and toe, yeah.
So let's just assume he plays, but Tooney doesn't. That's a big loss right there. Like that alone is just a game changer for Tooney. Because Pacheco's been playing his ass off. I mean, Pacheco, if you're telling me it's a low-scoring game in that ilk of 24-20, and it's going to be Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco, and Rashee Rice, like that's the 4, and they're just going toe for toe. Like there's a recipe there, but it's just hard for me to envision. Baltimore just has so much, and if Lamar's not playing tight, to me, it's like a Cinderella run for the Chiefs. And, you know, I think the Bills let him off the hook last week with, you know, going big on 2nd and 9 when they could have ran the clock all the way down to 40 or 30 seconds for a chip shot field goal. But here we are. I mean, I just think it's a lot to ask of that team. But, hey, the Chiefs definitely outperformed my expectations. I would have had them losing in the first round if it was a 60-degree game and not a fucking below zero game against Miami. So props to them. They're true champions. I love the way they're defending their championship, but I do see it, of course, ending Sunday, like I said. And sounds like we all got it. We don't often agree, especially when it's 4 of us, but all of us got Baltimore. Hopefully that's not the kiss of death for Kansas City. I'd really love to see Baltimore in there and not Kansas City again, but we'll see.
Yes, we will. And so now it's the 6:15 slot. We know who's in the AFC. We go over to the NFC. We got Detroit. They are heading to San Francisco. San Francisco started as like a 7-point favorite. I think they've either been bet down a little bit or up a little bit, depends on where you get it.
I think it's 6.5 for now.
It's 6.5 now. All right, so Timmy, what say you about this game? Who wins and why?
This one is definitely a lot harder. But I am going to do it. I'm taking Detroit here to defeat San Francisco. Last week, we did the rankings. Keenan, you did the defensive rankings, right? And you had the 49ers at 2. And I was thinking about it, and I honestly don't know if they're 2. I really don't.
Casey's got, looking after this week, seeing things, I honestly would probably put Casey ahead of them for sure.
I might even take Tampa ahead of them, to be honest with you. Looking at some of these games, they had a pretty light schedule compared to a lot of teams this year. So they started out with the Steelers, with Matt Canada. They scored a nice 7 points on them. Then they go to the Rams, 23. Then they get the Giants, 12. Cardinals without Kyler, 16. The Cowboys fell apart, 10. They let up 19 to DTR and the Browns. Just plenty of games where it's like, yeah, of course they should have dominated defensively against these teams. Like, these are backup rosters playing against these guys. Just looking at that. And then in the playoffs, it doesn't seem like so far, the Packers looked like they played a better offensive game than them. until the last play of their offense. So I'm rolling with Detroit here. I'm not saying Detroit's defense is better than the 49ers, but I would say that these last few weeks they've at least played a lot better than what we've seen throughout the season. So I'm going to say that they're going to tighten things up. If the 49ers don't have Debo, I think it's donezo. It's going to be a mid-20s game. Give me 27-23 Detroit.
So I've wrestled back and forth with this one all week. I think this is a better matchup than Kansas City Baltimore. It depends if Debo plays. If Debo Samuel doesn't play, then my pick might change later in the week to Detroit. I'm going to go with San Francisco. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be the kind of game where it matters who gets the ball last. I still don't believe in Detroit's defense. Like I said last week, they come and go as Aiden Hutchinson come and goes. He's been playing really great. I think he's got 8 sacks the past couple.
8 sacks in the last 4 weeks.
4 weeks, yeah. Brian Branch is also pretty good. They got some solid linebackers, but I don't think they have enough to stop San Francisco. Rashad White was able to run the ball on them last week. Christian McCaffrey is obviously light years ahead of Rashad White. San Francisco's offensive line is also way better than Tampa Bay's. I think Brandon Ayuk is going to give Detroit problems. I think George Kittle is too. I think it really depends on Brock Purdy. I know the weather conditions last week weren't ideal, so he was having some difficulty throwing the ball. Had receivers slip in. He was also underthrowing some receivers. I think that was more so to do with Green Bay's game plan. I absolutely think that Detroit has a chance. I think the running game, they are a little banged up on the offensive line. Jonah Jackson, their right guard, probably is not going to play. Frank Ragnow also is banged up as well, too. Their all-pro center. He's got a sprained knee and sprained ankle, so that's something to watch out for. He might not be 100%. He's going to have to take care of Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, guys like that. I do think San Francisco's pass rush is going to play a little bit of a part in this. I think mainly if they can cover the crossers, then they'll be fine. I think if you have Fred Warner sit in the middle, Dre Greenlaw sit in the middle. Tampa Bay did not do that last week, and Laporta ate them alive, and Amon-Ra did as well too. Josh Reynolds had a pretty big game. Khalif Raymond, which he actually did not practice today as well too, so that's something to watch out for. But I think San Francisco wins. I think San Francisco wins 27-24. I think it's going to be a close game.
Okay. I will go on. I do have Detroit winning this game. Here's the reasons why. Over the last 6 weeks, they're about 22 points a game defensively. You can throw on them. It's 322 yards a game, but they're holding opponents to about 68 yards rushing, 3.6 a carry. So they've been doing well in that aspect. They also have had 12 touchdowns over the last 6 weeks, but they've gotten 9 picks. So they are turning you over. Throughout the entire year, they were terrible in the red zone. Last 4 weeks, they're top 8 in the red zone. So they have changed that red zone defense, and they're forcing touchdowns to be field goals, and that's obviously the difference in the Bucks, less in the Bucks game, but definitely the difference in the Rams game. As I've stated last week and stated before, 49ers giving up about 5 yards a carry. We saw Aaron Jones run all over them a few weeks back. We saw James Conner run over them. The Lamar didn't really run all over them when they played because they were able to throw all over him because of the threat of Lamar. With Debo up in the air, absolutely changes the complexion of this entire game. The same way I went through with the Ravens and the Chiefs, I'm going through with the Lions and 49ers. Coaching edge, give that to Shanahan for sure. He's been there before. He's done that. I don't think Dan Campbell's a bad coach, but if you're going X's and O's, Shanahan's one of the best coaches in the league. Quarterback, I have Jared Goff over Brock Purdy. Running back, you get Christian McCaffrey over the Lions, but again, the Lions tandem is comparable to just Christian McCaffrey, I would say, and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery with what they do. Receiving edge, I'm giving to Detroit right now because of the fact that Debo's not there. Then you compare Amon-Ra to Brandon Ayuk, you go Amon-Ra. You've got Josh Reynolds compared to Jawan Jenkins. You would go Josh Reynolds, Jamison Williams over Chris Conley. You would go George Kittle over Sam Laporta, but that difference is not that far away. So I would go receiving edge there, offensive line edge. I would go to Detroit. I know if you're talking best player, the 49ers have the best player offensively on the line in Trent Williams. But as a whole, the Lions have a better line. And then defensively, defensive line, linebacking core, and cornerbacking, you just have. It'd be the 49ers. So they're better defensively, but I do think Detroit is better defensively as the season's gone on. It comes down really to Nick Bosa and Aiden Hutchinson for me, because both of these quarterbacks have shown that under pressure in the pocket, they aren't great. Nick Bosa hasn't been getting home as much as obviously Aiden Hutchinson has. So that's where I lean. I think Aiden Hutchinson's been having he's been playing like an all-pro over the last half of the season. He didn't make the all-pro team. He was a Pro Bowler this season because he didn't start the season like that. He was good, but not great. He's been all-pro over these last half of the season. Want to quickly go through. This game's littered with all-pros and Pro Bowlers and everything. So for San Francisco, you got Christian McCaffrey first team, Kyle Juszczyk first team, George Kittle first team, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, and then Travarius Ward second team. And then on Detroit, you have St. Brown first team, Penei Sewell first team, Laporta second team, Frank Ragnow second team, and then Aiden Hutchinson is playing at a all-pro level. He didn't make one, but we can all agree that he's playing. Right now he's probably the best edge rusher in this game. Nick Bosa's right there. But if you go Nick Bosa, I'm not going to be angry. So I got Detroit 27-25. This game also comes down to, can they get Amon-Ra St. Brown put on Ambry Thomas? Because he's the guy. You don't want to go at Ward. He's obviously had a really good year. Lenore, you don't really want to go at him. But can you move Ben Johnson? Can you get Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, and your playmakers on Ambry Thomas? And how can that go? That is my spiel. I have the Lions 27-25.
To add to your all-pros, the Niners also the first team to have 1,000-yard running back, 1,000-yard tight end, 1,000-yard receiver all on the same roster, I believe. Mm-hmm. The way I capped this game was very similar to what Branndon said, and I guess y'all said it too. But I very much hindered my pick on Deebo Samuel. He actually practiced today. He did not practice last night. I'm not gonna lie. I'll get to the breakdown. Actually, I'll save that. But I mean, let's say Deebo doesn't play. I think this is very much a 50-50 game. Very much a 50-50 game. Like coin flip game, like whatever. I'm agonizing over it if Deebo doesn't play. If Deebo does play, I lean 49ers. We've seen the Niners. Tim had a good point with their schedule. Niners either blow you the fuck out or lose outright. No in between. The only close game they won was last week against the Packers. And that was in the rain. We saw Purdy could not throw in the rain. Some quarterbacks just can't. Some quarterbacks just cannot deal with inclement weather. It looks to be clear weather. Jared Goff's a Cali kid, so he's used to, it's going to be 70 degrees, so it's going to be perfect for him. It's going to be equivalent to playing in a dome. Don't think there's even going to be sun, which helps both offenses too, in a way. And look, I forget who pointed it out, but you guys said it. Their run defense, the Lions' run defense is there. There's a recipe to where the Lions can run the ball and shorten the game and really make this a low-scoring game. And we've seen that when you get two high-powered offenses when the Lions and Cowboys played a few weeks back, end of the regular season, where you can just get a lower-scoring game than you expected. I don't know if Dan Campbell really has it in him, though, to just play it pretty conservative. Play it with, I'm going to ride Gibbs, play action to Laporta kind of thing. I don't know if he can play it that way the entire game. And if Deebo does play, I don't know how the Lions, whose pass defense is atrocious, not just bad, it's atrocious. I don't know how, if they get pressure on Purdy, okay. But we're relying on Aiden Hutchinson to control their whole defense. That's a lot. If you're telling me Deebo's going to be open, if Ayuk's going to be open, if Kittle's going to be open, if you're going to put McCaffrey in your pass game, that's a lot to ask of the Lions. But if Deebo's not there, I do think it becomes 50-50, and I think the position groups become, a draw at that point. And I think Goff, like you said, Keenan, I think Goff is a better quarterback than Purdy. But if they got everybody and the Lions' weakness is the 49ers' strength, and you got Debo, who we didn't even see what the game plan was from last week, I'm of the belief that he would be basically the third down back. I think they would have put him in the backfield, not as much as McCaffrey, but like a ton, like more than whoever their backup running back is. And I think he'll get a ton of touches this week in the backfield. I think they will, if you're running double backfield with McCaffrey and Debo, that's just going to send a whole lot of confusion to the Lions defense. I'm not sure they're equipped for that. Debo might not play, but the fact that he practiced on Thursday and will likely practice tomorrow, you would think he's playing Sunday. And if he's at all effective and can play at even 85, 90%, good thing it's a shoulder, not a leg injury if you're the Niners. Yeah, I have a tough time seeing the Lions dealing with that. And if the Niners get up 10-0, hypothetically, yeah, you can pin your ears back a little bit on Jared Goff, and that's when your defense can become a little more effective. So, yeah, excuse me. If Debo wasn't in this game, it would definitely be 50-50. I'd probably lean towards the Lions. But if it's Debo and Kyle Shanahan's full playbook, hard for me to pick against the Niners. I'm going to say Niners 31-28.
All right.
I do think the Lions at least cover. And by the way, let me switch my pick for the Ravens Chiefs. Not my pick, but my score. I'll give my score 28-24.
Alrighty. And
slightly more low scoring, but
okay.
Still kind of high scoring. But yeah, no, the Niners definitely have their holes. But I mean, Nick Mullins threw for 350 on the Lions defense twice this year. Purdy's going to do with a clean pocket, with good weather. I think McCaffrey, I think Debo, and I think Ayuk are just going to kind of run amok, and Kittle. I have a hard time seeing the Lions really break that. Unless you're telling me Aiden Hutchinson's running amok and just getting pressure all day on Purdy.
It's going to be a red zone game because I think teams have been throwing all over him. Doesn't matter. Baker threw for a party yards-wise. Matt Stafford threw a party yards-wise. But each team only scored 23 points because they were able to hunker down in the red zone. So I think a lot of it's going to come to that too. I think Brock Purdy probably should have 300 yards in this game. It just depends on if he has a couple turnovers with that 300 yards and how many touchdowns does he have with the 300 yards. The difference between the Bucs and not as much actually the Rams is obviously Christian McCaffrey's a little bit different of an animal. Kyron Williams, obviously second team All-Pro. He was great this season. Rashad White's very good, but they're both not Christian McCaffrey, so that's a little bit of an added advantage for them. So we'll see.
My reply to that would be like red zone. Sure, it definitely is a red zone game, and we've seen the Lions tighten up. But what red zone offense would you want more than the Niners? I mean, not only that, like the Debo effect. I think Debo's gonna have like 40-yard plays, 60-yard plays this game. Like the Lions are susceptible to that.
I mean, he matters so much to their offense. So.
He does. He's so explosive. Like McCaffrey, if you want to say McCaffrey's the best player, sure, but Debo's like their most explosive player. And I don't know, in the red zone, Debo, McCaffrey, and Kittle, and Ayuk, who's built for the red zone, I can't see the I can't see the Lions stopping that. It's pretty much a similar, theory I have with the Ravens against the Chiefs. It's just too much for the Chiefs to handle, and I think the Niners are going to be too much for the Lions to handle. But I do believe the Lions will be able to score and keep up. And who knows? We could come in here. Purdy has a 2-interception game. That's going to fare very well for the Lions. But I don't know. I'm going to roll with the Niners. And, I mean, it's tough because you can turn around and say, yeah, the Lions defense is playing much better. But I don't know. Gun to my head. It's still the Niners, and it's still the Lions. I mean, the Lions are cursed. We saw the Bills lose in excruciating fashion. Who's to say the Lions won't lose in excruciating fashion? I'm not wishing it on them, but
it's certainly possible.
There is a Lions curse out there. So,
Timmy, do you have any questions, points, comments, concerns that you wanted to bring up at all right now?
Kyle brought up red zone offenses. To me, obviously I'd take the 49ers. They got a lot of talent. But I would still definitely have the Lions in at least the conversation. They
For
get
sure.
inside the
Yeah.
20. They got 5 different ways they can score on you. And they're all pretty effective.
Most definitely.
So I would definitely still have them, definitely probably like top 5. But the 49ers, like you said, they're definitely more talented, better O-line, better offensive mind, even though Ben Johnson's been cooking up some pretty good plays. I can see Debo running wild and just, 60-yard chunk plays. I can see Jahmyr Gibbs breaking a few chunk plays. I can see Amon-Ra doing it.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So I really think this is going to be just a back and forth heavyweight fight right here. We're going to see a lot of scoring.
Yeah. Mike.
Question to you guys.
Never mind,
'cause you
Kyle's
just
gonna have
mentioned
it. Go on.
you mentioned the red zone offense. Who do you think has the better red zone defense in this matchup to all three you guys? Like, who would you rather have, the Niners defense in the red zone, or would you rather have the Lions defense in the red zone?
I'd say the Niners. I feel like they just have a little bit more on their defense.
I would take the Niners. I honestly think you could argue it, though, between the Lions. They
You can make a case
definitely,
for the Lions.
yeah, over the last month and definitely throughout the playoffs, they've definitely really tightened up in the red zone. So
Sure.
you could definitely argue it. I would take the 49ers just because we've seen pretty consistent defensive play from them.
I would probably take the 49ers too, but I think it's very close and closer than what you would appear on paper. Again, I just think you have a little bit more there. Like, if it gets to 3rd and goal from the 12 on the Lions, you have Aiden Hutchinson and hopefully someone else can get there. You have Chase Young and Nick Bosa, so it adds a little bit. But also the Lions have been very good, so that's something that it's a debate for sure.
2 other things I want to throw out.
Yep.
So you'll remember Thanksgiving Day.
Yes.
Right. We had, I think it was Cowboys, Commanders,
Yep.
Lions, Packers, and the Lions were on a tear.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Niners, Seahawks, right?
Yep.
And everybody and their moms obviously had Lions, Niners, Cowboys, and then probably the Dolphins with a parlay.
Mm-hmm.
And your question anytime you're doing a parlay like that is like, who's gonna fuck this up, right? And I presented you guys a question a couple weeks ago, like, hey, what's more likely, that the Packers get excluded from the playoffs exactly how they did last year with the Lions, with the team on the come up, just blocking them from the playoffs, or that we get 2 number ones in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row? Because it never happens that we get 2 number ones, it seems like.
Yeah.
And here we are, we got 1 versus 3 each side. And I'm like, man, like, it seems like it's right there, but it just seems like one's going to fuck it up. And if I were to pick one to fuck it up, it would be the Niners, even though I think they've been the best team along the way. But I definitely struggled with this when I was breaking down the games way more than the AFC side. Other thing I wanted to mention that is a factor in this game, Dan Campbell is absolutely unhinged when it comes to play calling, when it comes to 4th down calls. And I do think we could see a situation where, he's going for it on 4th and 8 at his own 45. And that just gives the Niners a short field. So, I mean, if you do think the Niners were to win by 10 points, I mean, that's something you can factor in. I think Kyle Shanahan's a bit safer. He's definitely aggressive. He's an offensive coach, so he's going to be aggressive on 4th down. But I could see Campbell going for it on, anything that's past 4th and 5, 4th and 7, 4th and 6. I could see Campbell just going for it when he doesn't necessarily need to, and that coming back to bite him. So that's where I think Shanahan will have the edge in this game. I mean, we saw it in that Dallas game. That was the equivalent of a playoff game, and he refused to not go for 2 on that last debacle, which he did get fucked over by the refs. But I mean, he just refused to kick that extra point and go into OT. You know what I mean? So Campbell does have that on him. What do you guys think about that?
I think that could certainly be a factor. Like, I do agree. He's super, super aggressive with some of his play calling. I mean, it could even come down to maybe if they're within field goal range and he elects to, let's say, go for it on 4th and 3 instead of kicking a 50-yard field goal. And let's say they don't convert. Like that's enough to swing momentum in a game. And I think something like that could definitely backfire, because that's the Dan Campbell way, is go big or go home. Everybody says that Dan Campbell has balls of steel, and it's true. Dude just does not back down at all.
True story. True story.
Timmy, you?
I think I was literally going to say like nearly the exact same thing that Branndon just said. They're in field goal range, like 4th and 3 from the 15, and they go for it instead of just taking the 3 points. But I think they're going to get it. I think this team's going to be coached up. They're going to be ready to play, and it's just going to turn into a touchdown. And they're going to set the tone early because they know that field goals aren't going to win them this game. They got to score. They got to be up in the high 20s to win this game. So, and if anybody is going to prove it to the team, it's going to be Dan Campbell. So they're going to be going for it. I could see him going for it on a questionable 4th down 2 or 3 times in this game because they want to set the tone.
Yeah,
that's exactly where I'm at. I think he's going to go for it 3 or 4 times, and I just wonder like if he's 50%. You know, I mean, a lot of those happened like within the midfield area. So if you're getting the 49ers a short field, that's almost a death sentence. You're getting either 3 or 7 out of that. Oftentimes 7 when you're the Niners. I mean, you know, we talked about the defenses, but this Lions team's built for this game as far as just matching. They can go mano-a-mano with this Niners team. And as you said, with Ben Johnson, the play calling is going to be just as good as Kyle Shanahan's. So, I mean, it's crazy to say this, but there's a world where we're absolutely getting Detroit in the Super Bowl. I can't see it yet. And I really do think the inexperience of Dan Campbell will show up in this game on one of those 4th down calls or something. Like, I just feel like there's going to be a Dan Campbell moment where it's even going to top him trying to go for 2 repetitively in that Dallas game. So I can't wait. I think this is going to be the more chaotic game out of the two. I do think Baltimore and the Chiefs, that has a chance to rival the Bills game as far as drama, as far as last week's game. Keenan, I want to point out, just because I'm going to bring this up on another podcast. I've said this to you before when me, you, and Tim were recording on how I think the 2010s NFL is just like the best era, like an incredible era. And I was kind of going through it the other night, and I just went through 2010 through 2013, and there was a ton of classic moments that were in that vein. But I was looking at 2014. I think it would be the 2013 season, 2014 playoffs. It's crazy, but back-to-back weeks, Keenan, we got Dez caught it, that drama. And then the very next game for the Packers was Packers-Seahawks, that classic game. Like, that was and then that led to Seahawks-Malcolm Butler. So we got 3 like bona fide classics back-to-back-to-back in those weeks.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we can live up this year, because we've had some good games. We've had one for sure classic with Baltimore Chiefs last week. A really good game in Niners Packers, but we might be set up for 2 classics on Sunday.
Absolutely could be. One thing I wanted to say was I could see the Ravens and Bengals game being Ravens and Chiefs game being a lot like the Bengals and Chiefs game last year. The 23-20 obviously came down to the field goal at the end, the controversial call. 2 high-powered offenses that the defense knows how to play against them, obviously. So that could be a very interesting game and kind of be just like the other AFC North team was. That's 1. 2. You're right, absolutely. From that 2010 to that 2013, obviously you had the Giants Super Bowl. You had the Cardinals versus the Packers, the 45-42. I think you had the other Cardinals-Packers was a little bit later with the Larry Fitzgerald play, but it could have been also in that time. I can't remember if it was exactly.
It was later.
I thought it was like a little bit later. But you had the Aaron Rodgers.
You had Tebow Mania.
You had Tebow Mania. You had Tebow Mania throwing for I think 310 against the Steelers, and then the big play to Demaryius Thomas. You obviously had, if you're talking 2013, that means you had the first of the Patriots and Broncos. That wasn't as close of a game, but still just Brady Manning anytime they play is always going to be interesting and always going to be a story.
You had the Flacco fling.
You had the Flacco fling. Yeah. You had, there was so much there. Obviously, the Super Bowl, the candlestick, that game was crazy. 2010 Packers-Steelers was very good too. I know Aaron Rodgers played a great game in that Super Bowl, but that one was pretty interesting too. So yeah, there's a lot just in the first 3 years where I'm like, and then I mean, you can keep going with the next 3 years if you wanted to, but there's so many things in every single playoffs that's very interesting and very intriguing. But the last thing I want to ask before, if anyone has anything else to, player under the most pressure this weekend. Tim, start with you.
It's hard not to pick a quarterback. They're all under pressure. Mahomes is under the least pressure in my
I
mind
agree.
because he could lose and nobody cares. Actually, if he loses, people are cheering. People want him to lose. Lamar, I think, is under quite a bit of pressure just because if he doesn't win now, then when? It's kind of like he's got to get one eventually. Yeah. But I think under the most pressure is going to be Brock Purdy just because he kind of can make or break this team. And if he breaks this team, then that's 2 seasons in a row of the only thing you remember from the season is technically Brock Purdy's the reason why the season didn't end up in the Super Bowl.
First time not his fault, but yes.
It's not his fault, but that's exactly the reason. That's the only thing people remember is without Purdy, we weren't there. So
it's an interesting point.
Plus, people still don't believe that he's like the guy. They don't think he's the franchise quarterback. They don't think he's their answer. So he can really kind of prove that this weekend. I think he did pretty well last weekend, all things considered, losing Debo. So I think he's under the most pressure. And then Lamar right after that. I don't think Jared Goff really has anything to prove. He's been to a Super Bowl. Nobody really expected the Lions to make this deep of a push. So honestly, they've already overachieved as it is. But if the 49ers don't get to a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan, you can put Kyle Shanahan there, I guess, because season after season after season, some way it all comes falling down. And even though they keep making it to the NFC Championship game, they just can't seem to get it done. So, yes.
I'll piggyback off of that because I would have exactly the same order that Tim just gave. I think Lamar is under the most pressure. I think it's funny how polarizing of a figure Purdy is because obviously he's not as skilled as the other 3 quarterbacks that are left, right? And people, he's a hot topic in the quarterback community, in the football community.
He's honestly the hottest topic.
It seems that way. And so he really shouldn't, being Mr. Irrelevant and being in his second season, there should be no pressure. He should still be a Cinderella story. But it seems like there's a lot of people who are rooting for him to fail. So I agree with Tim, he weirdly has more pressure than Goff or certainly Mahomes when it comes to quarterbacks, but not more pressure than Lamar. Same like we've been saying, same with Josh Allen. If not now, then when? You got Burrow down, you got Mahomes when they're clearly compromised. They are very clearly compromised. Baltimore should win this game. There's a reason why it's still sitting at 3.5 and not 3. Yeah, Lamar's got. If Lamar were to lay an egg in this game, it would be just bad for his legacy. It'd be very much like early Peyton Manning for his legacy. So it's got to be Lamar. And then as far as coaches go, it's got to be Shanahan. Shanahan's been so close. He's either been in the big game or within a possession of the big game, or like last year, wasn't any of their faults. Purdy gets injured, and they get a shit luck, really.
Yep.
But overall, if not any of them, it's got to be Kyle Juszczyk. So
fair enough.
Where it's at.
Branndon, you
for the fullbacks.
Yeah, I think it's definitely Lamar Jackson. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think with him getting that big contract, that definitely plays into it. When you're getting paid like that, you're expected to bring championships to Baltimore. I've seen people asking him all week, you're back in the AFC Championship game. How do you handle this? I think arguably you could say that Baltimore's the favorite right now to win the Super Bowl. I would certainly say that they are. I think on paper they're the best team. And I think also for Lamar too, I think if you lose, it kind of piggybacks to the narrative of, okay, hey, maybe you're not a franchise quarterback. Maybe you're a running back that plays quarterback, that can't win the big game. You crack under pressure.
Quarterbacky enough.
Yeah, you're kind of a gimmick player, whatever you want to call him, whatever. Don't care what the word is, but I think it's Lamar. I think if they don't win, regardless if it's Kansas City or not, I think it could get very ugly for him. And then questions there's going to be questions that follow. Is he the guy for Baltimore? Like, did we mess up by paying him, franchise quarterback money? And it's going to open up a whole can of worms that I think he doesn't want to get involved in, and that Baltimore doesn't want to get involved in either. So
I think that Lamar and Brock Purdy are both under the most pressure, so I agree with that. Lamar, I think, can lose this game. He can't play bad in it because I do think the fact that it is Mahomes and Reed and they are what they are, it's the same. I know it's not exactly the same, but again, if they do win this game, it's going to be bordering on Brady Belichick. It wasn't the end of the world for quarterbacks who are better, who are really good to lose to Brady and Belichick because it is those two. So I do think Lamar just needs to play a very good game. He doesn't have to win. I think that Brock Purdy has to win. I don't think there's a way he can just play a really good game and I think I think the win means more than it does for Lamar because they're playing a Detroit Lions team with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. I think that's just how it works. Playing wise, I think actually I'm going to wait on that because I think that's an X Factor thing. I wanted to ask actually about X Factor. Who's the biggest X Factor of the weekend? Can be any team.
Off the top of my head, I would say, I kind of already said Debo for the Niners, but he's their number 2 option, if not number 1, 1A, 1B kind of thing. I would say Gibbs for the Lions.
Gibbs, yeah.
I think he's going to play a big role. I think he's going to tear the Niners up. And I think if the Lions do win, he'll be a big part of it. Mm-hmm. But he's the number 1 player that jumps off to me when you ask X Factor.
All right. Timmy, you?
I was going to say Gibbs. I'll say OBJ. I think he's just going to make a couple clutch plays, and it's just going to work out.
I like that.
They get him when they need him, and then it works.
I like that. I love me some OBJ. Branndon, how about you?
So I was going to go Debo, but we've already brought up the whole Debo thing. I actually have a 1A and 1B because I kind of can't decide between the two. It's 2 defensive players, Aiden Hutchinson, Kyle Hamilton. As I said, Detroit's defense kind of runs off of Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to have a big game. And then Kyle Hamilton as well, too. We saw a vintage Travis Kelce game last week. Granted, Baltimore's defense is great, but I think Kyle Hamilton's going to have to shoulder majority of the load for Travis Kelce and for that crossing concept and stuff. So I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be a big X factor for Baltimore's defense.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone said. I was going to have 2 offensive, 2 defensive, just to quickly give shine to both. Offensively, I think Travis Kelce, I think him having a game unlocks that entire offense. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco on the ground, it's going to be big for them to get a ground game, but if you have Travis Kelce getting open on Kyle Hamilton, getting open on Roquan Smith, that changes the entire complexion of that offense. And then offensively, I think it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I understand he's very good, but if you can have him on Travarius Ward doing work, if you get him on any switches in the slot or whatever, he unlocks that offense. I think his playmaking skills up with the ball in his hands and his route running getting open really helps Jared Goff. Defensively, I agree completely. It is Aiden Hutchinson because he's really the defense. He's the engine that makes that defense go. And if they're going to play, they need him to make at least 3 key plays. Either it's a sack, a pass rush to get Brock Purdy off the spot, maybe a turnover here. And then Ambry Thomas is the other one because that is what Ben Johnson and the entire Lions organization is going to be aiming for because he is the third corner who is not all that great. Can you guard Amon-Ra on certain plays? Can you not let Jamison Williams get over your head? Can you not let Josh Reynolds just get chunk plays on you? That is going to be big. And so those are my guys.
I'd say another one could be, and we don't know what his health truly is. It could be just running around getting cardio, but it would be Mark Andrews. If he's healthy, that could completely put Baltimore over the top. Like, not just over the Chiefs, but over the 49ers as well. I have a couple rapid fire questions. I know a couple of y'all got to get up like real early.
Shout out Tim.
If not all y'all, but
and Brandon.
Let's say this game's 2020 AFC side. Let's say it's 2020. Doesn't matter who's got the ball. Do you think the Chiefs get a call Last year was a big topic of like the Chiefs get calls. Do you think they will just get a call here or there where it could have been holding, it could not have, but we're just gonna throw it to the Chiefs? Do you think that will be a factor? Any of the three of you take it first. We'll go rapid fire because I got a couple more.
Factor, no, absolutely they'd get a call. I don't think it's going to become to a point where they need to have a factor. But I do think that they could.
But hypothetically, if it was 2020,
yes, they absolutely would get a call. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to say hypothetically yes. And then I also think there's going to be like a missed call. I think you're going to see like an obvious Jawan Taylor hold that the refs are just not going to call. So I think it's going to be one of those cases too.
Yeah, I think they'll probably get like a judgment call that could have gone either way. That should have gone one way, and they just get it.
Phantom roughing the passer on 3rd and like 11. Mahomes. One of the things that pisses me off the most, I know this is rapid fire. Mahomes throws a pick. There's a phantom holding call that or a bump, and Pete was like he didn't actually throw a pick, but he really did. It was just a bad decision, but he gets bailed out with that. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a roughing the passer call on a 3rd down late in game if that was to be the case.
Keenan, we talked about it. We didn't get a chance to talk about it with Tim and Branndon, but that call where they called illegal touching on Buffalo, where he hit the Chiefs receiver within 5 yards before Mahomes released it. That was one of the latest flags I've ever seen. I was damn near beside myself when that happened. I don't know how y'all felt about it.
I think I actually texted you about that one, Kyle. I think.
Yeah, you might have.
Yeah.
I mean, I was too upset about the DeMar Hamlin call, them trying to get him the comeback player of the year. But yeah, no, I could not believe they threw that flag a good 10 seconds after the whistle or after the play was dead, and that's not even an exaggeration.
And they discussed it. They stood there talking about, well, was he within 5? Was the ball thrown? Okay, we're gonna give it to him anyways. That was nuts.
Yeah,
and it's weird to me. Again, I don't want to get too far into it, but we saw, I believe it was Brandon Staley a few weeks ago. He challenged a judgment call on a flag, but that wasn't able to be challenged if he was within 5 yards. So I don't understand the NFL rulebook when it comes to what's challengeable and what's not.
It changes so much.
No one does. Literally,
it seems to. Does. It really seems to. Out of these two games, which do you think has higher blowout potential?
49ers and Lions, and I think it'd be the 49ers blowing out the Lions because I can't see Mahomes getting blown out. The Ravens' defense is too good to allow them to get blown out. I think this has to be a close game regardless. The Lions could just not have a defense, and Jared Goff could throw picks. So I think the 49ers blowing out the Lions. I don't really see the Lions blowing out the 49ers, even though technically the Packers could have last week if they capitalize on everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the most obvious out of them. I think the second one would possibly be Baltimore versus Kansas City, just on the basis that Baltimore has played San Francisco and other top tier teams really well. So I could see a scenario where that happens. I just don't think it's very likely. So I do think San Francisco has the highest chance to blow out Detroit.
I'm actually going to take Baltimore. We've seen them play plenty of top tier talent and blow them out. They're built for it. They can run, they can kill the clock. Their defense just turns it over. If they get a couple turnovers early, it's not unreasonable to say that the Ravens are up 21-3 or 21-0 even, by capitalizing on some early interceptions, fumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, to bolster your point, Ravens beat the Lions by 32, beat the Niners by 14. Beat the Dolphins by 37, beat the Browns by 25, beat the Texans by 16 and 24, the Jags by 16, the Seahawks by 34, and the Bengals by 14. 9 2-touchdown wins over teams with winning records is unprecedented.
They're set before the Texans game. They were 7-2 against playoff teams, and they had an average margin of victory by 17 points.
And when they played the 49ers, They were way up on them, and it took a Sam Darnold garbage time touchdown to make it a 14-point game.
Yeah,
So that was more like a 20-point game that they were up.
That's
and
what it felt like, absolutely. But
For sure. Last question for y'all.
Yep.
It's a Keenan classic.
I love Keenan classic.
Monday night,
questions.
we're in here talking. We're reviewing the games. What's the story? What's the biggest story from Sunday's games that we will be talking about? Tim, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say the Super Bowl logo is incorrect this year. Have you seen the color scheming? That's the biggest thing. Is going to say the script writers got it wrong. They put some red in. It should have been blue. They don't know what they're doing.
I was not expecting you to go there.
There you go.
What about from Sunday? What about from Sunday's games?
I think there's a good chance we're going to see one quarterback crumble under the pressure. And they're just going to be talking about like maybe it's a big turnover game or just like dumb decision in a big moment.
Who's that quarterback?
I think it's going to be Purdy. I really do. But I could low-key seeing it be Lamar, and it would break my heart if the Ravens lose. So I'm going to say it's Purdy.
I feel you.
Branndon, you
Keenan,
go next.
Patty, which one?
Okay, I'm gonna go with the quarterback as well too. But I think it's going to be just to kind of go in like an opposite direction of Tim. I think it's going to be a quarterback that kind of pops off and puts his team on his back. I think it's Lamar Jackson. I'm going to say 400 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns. Kind of like a bold prediction, like I guess you could say.
I would like that
That's
more
a great
than
one.
literally anyone on this set.
Are you
know,
saying I
guys
should
all love
parlay
Lamar.
that
My
with like
God.
a UVM win, maybe?
I did. Kyle, Kyle, I got to tell you about that one. I don't think Kyle heard that one.
No, Kyle heard the UVM.
The
parlay.
UVM one?
Oh, he did. Okay.
Kyle heard
No, that was some real degenerate shit. If you would have told me it was with like 4 other college basketball games, I'd be like, all right, that's on brand. But
No, that's
Pacers underdog. Congrats on the win, though. That's a big time unhinged win.
That is
what
a
the hell that
huge
is.
win.
Very unhinged. Don't put that on your parlay though, Tim.
No, do it. Do the 400 yards. Do the 400. Yeah.
Okay, so
Key, what you got?
I've got 2. One Monday morning, people will be like, with a Super Bowl win, would Lamar Jackson surpass Patrick Mahomes for the best quarterback in the league? That is what people will be talking about over the next 2 weeks. So it's definitely going to be Lamar based and him having a great game against the Chiefs. And then the other one would be, is Aiden Hutchinson the best pass rusher in the league? B2.
Interesting.
Because people love to jump on waves early, and it'd be like, well, he has 10 sacks over the last 5 games. He's single-handedly carrying this Detroit defense. Is he on the same level as Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Nick Bosa? Aaron Donald, but he's obviously more interior. So is he on that level?
Bold take. Aiden Hutchinson, pick 6.
Pick 6.
Okay.
If Aiden
All
Hutchinson
right.
gets a pick 6, I'll be thrilled. I would be thrilled.
I can give you a local headline here in Jacksonville if Detroit wins and Aiden Hutchinson has a good game. And that's going to be why Jacksonville should have taken Hutchinson number 1 overall instead of Trayvon Walker. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, we still got to do a Jags reassessment of this season, a review of the season, I should say.
So we obviously are running out of time here a little bit here because obviously people have their day jobs and not that. One thing that I do want to talk about a little bit next time is Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers and what that looks like, because I think that's a very big story. I think that's something huge.
And the fact that Belichick's probably not even going to be a coach this year.
And that was the other point.
We're going to get we might get Belichick on TV, which is that's almost a better outcome.
That was the thing. Is he going to be a coach? Like, the chances are like 1%, but would he ever be just a D coordinator? Like, I mean, he would never be it, but hypotheticals are fun. So definitely next time we can add that in with obviously talking about these crazy games. But if no one has anything else, this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. Thank you. No,
Well, one half of the Warner Brothas podcast didn't even give his Monday headline.
Oh yeah, so sorry. You don't. So half of the time, Kyle.
The disrespect.
Half Kyle. Timmy, you can actually attest to this. Half of the time, Kyle won't give a Monday morning headline. He'll just normally ask, and be like, I don't actually really know. So my bad.
I feel like I've given mine.
You absolutely have
most
before,
of the time,
but
yeah.
He absolutely has
definitely
before,
times you leave it
but,
out,
but there's times there are questions you're like, oh, I don't really know. I just wanted to know what you guys thought. But you got what's your Monday morning?
That's true. I have given questions where I did not have my own answer that I wanted.
So my bad, Kyle. What is your Monday morning headline?
This is gonna be some vagueness, but I think there's always some drama coming out of these games. We had Deflategate coming out of these games. We were just talking about classic moments of the 2010s. This one's one of my favorites that I kind of forgot about. Jay Cutler just sitting a second half when he had a knee injury. There's
saw him on the
always
bike.
some sort of drama.
Nicole Roby Coleman.
Yeah. The non-pass interference call. Like, there's always some drama. There's always some ref drama in these type of games. So I hear you guys on some of the narrative plays, but I do think there's going to be something like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was he thinking? Why did he do that? Again, I know this is vague, but there's just going to be some drama thing that happened that we're all going to be like, bro, what the fuck was that? Mm-hmm. What was that in the Chiefs-Ravens game? What was that in the Niners-Lions game? I do think, I didn't pick it, but we just talked about it. I do think the Niners have blowout possibilities, so maybe we're really only keying in on the Ravens and Chiefs on Monday. But I just think there's going to be some drama. That's what we'll be talking about. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to these games.
There's one other headline that's a possible thing, and is Patrick Mahomes already the GOAT? And if there's if he wins the Super Bowl, I already have my entire argument made and prepared for him not being the GOAT.
See, y'all are talking about ESPN headlines. I'm talking about what your headlines are.
I'm talking about headlines all over. I know. I gave my headlines of what I think it's going to be. But I do think it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson possibly in the conversation, and then Lamar Jackson, can he overtake? I think that's just a conversation that's interesting. But I do think a true one is Patrick Mahomes already to go, because people are already talking about it. And if he wins another one, oh boy, am I going to be upset? Oh boy.
The one that we didn't give, and it's obvious and it's right there. If the Lions win, that's the story. Any way, shape, or form the Lions win, that's going to be the story for 2 weeks. It's going to be a party in Detroit.
Listen, if they win the Super Bowl, Eminem's performing "Lose Yourself" at the party.
if they win a Super Bowl, they literally in the last decade have gone from the worst to the best by going 0-16 all the way to winning a Super Bowl.
That would be wild.
And I don't think no franchise has ever done that. So
that's going to be a 30 for 30.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that for sure would be a 30 for 30.
Would be.
They're definitely going to get that fan that's like 80-year season ticket holder for the Lions or whatever.
Some feel good story.
He's going to be all over it.
He would kick it off. They'd show the field.
He'd be like, I was there during the 0-16.
I was there the last game when they lost 0-16. I remember Barry in that last win we had. Megatron, Stafford, and finally Dan Campbell kneecap eating Campbell comes home and gets it done.
Is it possible maybe that the Pistons took all of the Lions' bad juju and the Lions?
It certainly is very, very
Is it possible
all what the
that
Pistons had from the 80s to the 2000s?
Is it possible that the Pistons lose or win less games than the Lions this season?
What are the Pistons at right now?
The 5 wins.
5.
They're not even at 6 wins yet.
No.
And the Lions, combined with their playoffs, they're at what?
They're 5-39, 14? And Detroit won 12 games, so they're at 14. So it'd be 16 14 games. So that means it'd have to be like a 33% winning team. That's a tough ask for them. So there's a chance that if the Lions win the Super Bowl, that the Pistons don't win as many games as the Lions, which would be insane.
The fact that even if the Lions lose this week, the fact that the Pistons will still be like in range of what the Lions got. You know what I mean? They'll probably
could
surpass
still do
14,
it.
but it won't be much.
Yeah.
They could still. I mean, they've played 44 games and won 5. On that pace, they're on pace to win 9. So it already could be like done.
I think the Wizards and the Spurs have worse rosters. Like, I don't understand it. Granted, they have shit records too, but like,
oh my god,
I think they have worse rosters than the Pistons.
Yeah,
I think the Pistons have a pretty good young roster.
Yeah, they have pieces, but you know this is literally a conversation from February 12th on. Like once the Super Bowl's over, actually February 13th. Let me get a day of talking about the Super Bowl, and then it's basketball. All basketball.
This was the Warner Brothas Podcast. This was Kyle. This was Keenan. This was Timmy Garoppolo. This was Branndon Petty. We're out of here. We'll see you Monday. We'll be reviewing the games. Will Tim and Branndon be here? That's the cliffhanger we're going to leave y'all on. Catch me and Keenan on live take over the weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll be reviewing the championship games on Sunday. Catch us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that. Do not check out our Twitter. That's defunct. We're out of here. See y'all Monday.
Like a man.